Black women and men standing strong. In the years leading up to the successful attainment of women's right to vote, Black men and women, as well as white women, were optimistic about what the vote would mean for disenfranchised people. Apparently naive about the extent of the corruption in the American political process. Susan B. Anthony, the leading white woman, for example, often said to Ida B. Wells during their conversations on race and women's issues, well, now, when women get the ballot, all that will be changed. Anna Julia Cooper was especially Anna Julie Cooper was especially confident about the integrity of black women. The black women said Cooper, the black women, said Cooper, is always sound and orthodox on questions affecting the well-being of the race. You do not find the colored woman selling her birthright for a mess of pottage. I'm sorry, I can't see very well. W. Du Bois was also enthusiastic about the potential outcomes of adding black women to the voting rolls. Votes for women, he observed, means vote for black women. You can bribe some pamperized Negro laborers with a few dollars of election time, but you cannot bribe a Negro woman. With such hope, black women set their sights on obtaining the right to vote. And Giddings noted, it was the rising of specific issues within the context of national concerns that encouraged a brand-based activism among blacks, an activism whose roots were planted by women. Some of the issues of concern for black women in this era were sexual exploitations, controlling prostitutions and vice, supporting interracial marriage, ushering in compulsory education of the South, labor protection, and the most immediate concern was the loss of the vote by black men in the South and the change that they had, in many instances, sold their votes to white supremacist politicians. The charge, beg their pardon. Question number 4. Do you think it is true that women have more integrity than men when it comes to the electoral process? Number 5. What are the issues of today you believe could be, I can't see that, ameliorated or resolved through the electoral or political process? Number 6. Barack Obama raised the hopes of a generation of young votes with his 208 run for presidency. Some have been disappointed with what he has been able to accomplish on their behalf, and have now joined the ranks of those already disillusioned by the American political process. Frustrated with the lesser of the two evils, choice provided in this year, presidential campaign, at least one organization in New York City is encouraging black people to vote in Reparations Now.
To write in
Reparations Now as their vote for U.S. President in 2016. What do you think of this idea?
Well, I don't think women have more integrity than men, because once you get involved in politics, you either play or get played. So, and maybe it works nice. They play nicely in other states, but any state I've been in, they are dirty. They are dirty. So if you come in, to run on the popular vote just to change things in your neighborhood, in your district, if you get in, if they haven't come to you and say, oh, we see you're popular, well, if you take a dive this time, we'll give you a position on our council, or whatever, later, you can really be hurt, Because now you've shown your weakness, which is because you care about people. Which, why is that a weakness? It just speaks to the predatory nature of politicians. What are you there for if you're not there to help your constituents?
Mhm.
So, and I love the idea of writing in reparations now or anything, Bugs, but whatever you want to write. But if your if your voting booth is an electronic thing, you can't write in nothing. Because I remember the last election of the local one. I wanted to write in something. You couldn't if you could not pick the guy. You could not pick the guy they had on there.
Oh,
You had to pick him.
really?
You had to pick him. I'm like, what kind of shit is this going on here? So it just speaks to, and I'm a techie person. So I was like, when they talked about electronic voting, I'm like, yeah, I can vote from home. That would be great.
Right.
No, they have rigged it so it's
Really?
always in their favor. It's always in their
Wow.
favor.
Okay. Okay. Well, I agree. I don't think that women. I don't think that. I think it's easy for us to say now that women don't have more integrity than men when they're involved in the political process. Um, but 100+ years ago, when this was playing out, before women had access to the vote, I can understand why they believed that women were going to bring more integrity to the situation. Um, and I think it has something to do with women either being naturally or being socialized to be the nurturers, the ones that care. Like the guy that was like, "Why would you vote for pure food law
Yes, yeah.
when you can just put some baking soda in your refrigerator?"
So crazy and condescending. But I was like, really?
Yeah. But I think women, because we are the ones that bring life into the world, do have a tendency to try to support life and preserve life, whereas it doesn't seem to be so much of a priority for the men. But the more that women have gotten into the political process, and rather than doing what I guess Susan B. Anthony hoped they would do, which was to change the process, they have become, um, you know, as bad as, maybe even worse than the men, because, women can be kind of
Yeah. That,
manipulative. We kind of think of things in a like a deeper kind of way than the average man. And so when you think of bringing that kind of intelligence to a corrupt process, it can be pretty scary. And so if you think of someone like a Hillary comes to mind, you know, um, then, and I think that, and it's not just women, but it's I don't know what it is, the process of socialization, the process of Americanization, like, what I'm thinking about is, to me, as women started coming into the workforce, and as white women started coming into the workforce in greater numbers, and in our generation, and moving their way up the corporate ladder. Remember in the beginning when women used to like wear those suits that made them look like men, and You know,
Yes.
they were like
Yes.
harder than hard and tougher than tough. That's what I'm talking about. That process of emulation that goes on when you're trying to prove that you're worthy of being someplace. And we also saw it with black people as they were moving in to the corporate sector, you know, becoming whiter than white to prove they were worthy of being there. And so some of that, I think, is what we've seen happen in the political process as women have become legislators. You know, they first had this need to prove they were worthy of that position. And that means I got to be willing to get as dirty. I got to get down like you get down to prove I can handle this.
Yeah.
I guess I just wanted to add that maybe 100+ years ago, the question of safety was paramount. Paramount that you could go to work every day and be sexually assaulted, and there wasn't a crime, it wasn't anything. So I think that made the hope of voting even more important to African American women. So I think that that's also another thing that, in terms of their integrity, it just kind of made them more determined to pull together. And the other thing that I wanted to say is that today, I think when you have more and more women in the ring, sometimes women can compete against each other in this very, very unflattering kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
That now it's you both are trying to get to a prize or to somebody else's attention, because there's so much competition between women, and I think sometimes we lose focus with that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's more of a today issue than I see from the readings of what women were like doing 100 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that could just be the women I know.
No.
Oh no.
I would put everybody in the same bucket now.
What about the question about what are the issues of today that you believe could be ameliorated or made less harsh or resolved through the electoral or political processes? I think mass incarceration is definitely one. Campaign finance um, comes quickly to mind. Um, what else?
Uh, hmm. Like stopping them from weakening consumer rights and protections and the banking situation.
Mm-hmm.
Even with our food, what we're ingesting now is just so questionable. And
Yes.
so many foods are imported from so many different places, and there are absolutely no regulations. You don't know
What we're
what to eat.
eating, what we're drinking, what
Mm-hmm.
we're breathing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that the political process, to be honest with you, can't do anything to resolve any of those issues. I think maybe before we let them get to the point where they are, because everything is moving very quickly now. If we were going to do something about that, that should have been maybe 10 years ago. But now imprisonment is so privatized. And once you start talking about the paper, and once that paper gets out there the way it is, and I'm not sounding pessimistic, I'm being a realist, I really think it's too late. It's going so quickly now. As we speak,
Well,
they're building more prisons, they're privatizing everything. You know, um, okay, a good example is the food, our food system, which I've seen, which is really frightening to me. Um, but they're actually changing the way they even grow our food. You know, they have vegetables that they no longer grow in dirt. They grow in the air.
Benita, use the
Theory.
use healthcare reform as an example of what you're saying about things being too, already too entrenched to make substantive change.
HMOs were actually came out, what year was that? In the early 80s. And the purpose of health management organizations were to manage the cost and the care, I should say, of patients. That worked for a few minutes, a few years. It was pretty good. You no longer had to worry about doctor's office visit payments or co-payments or medical or your prescriptions. And then it went right, and actually, to be honest with you, it was really the biggest culprit was Medicare. And then after that, it just went to the other side. So now it's gotten to the point where the patient is just a commodity.
Mm-hmm.
No one's managing you. Your care has nothing to do with you. Nobody cares if you're sick. The doctor cannot be a doctor anymore. The healthcare system is telling the doctor what you need, no matter what disease you have.
Okay.
He can't tell them, well, Benita has so-and-so and we have a drug out that works better for her condition, if the health insurer doesn't want me to have that drug. But, things are so much out of hand now till even with healthcare. President Obama's a healthcare initiative that he put in place. Was a few years ago now?
Obamacare.
Well, so they call it. I forgot. I forgot. Yeah, that he put in place. Now we knew that wasn't going to work from the beginning. At least I did. Because first of all, universal care. If you were going to try to put any universal care in place, I should say maybe his intentions were good, but I don't even know how good they were. If you're going to put it in place, that would have been something you probably would have done maybe 10, 15 years ago, when the economy was good, when folks were working, when college graduates could find jobs.
Mm-hmm.
When these programs are put in place, you have unemployed college students that haven't had jobs, I know, 4, 5, 6 years, 7 years. And then you're going to penalize folks for not being able to buy the health coverage that does not have a job.
Yeah.
Then you're going to put them into one of the programs, and in Connecticut it's called Husky program, for people that don't have jobs, where you don't have to pay money, but no doctor's want to see you.
Wow.
Then they said, well, their thought was, we'll have all these young people sign up and they'll help defray the cost. That did not happen. So what happened was they took more people out of the healthcare system that way. They made more people sicker, because guess what? The folks that could pay are now paying for those people that could not pay. So the premium started to go up and up and up. So that's why, it's a good example of how we allow things to move along so quickly that you can forget it now. You will never change that now. Absolutely, positively, never change that.
Okay, thank you. So you all know how I hate how I hate using words like never. Even though I have to admit some things really are never. I'd rather say 500-year plan.
They're going to kill us in 500 years with medical.
That gives me a reason to keep putting one foot in front of the other. But so this question 6 about disillusionment with the political process, and and how we feel about this idea of writing in reparations now, for those of us that don't believe any real choice is offered by the current spate of candidates, or that is ever really offered between the two major parties. I don't know. I mean, I am struggling with it myself. I've been to a number of community meetings where that tactic has been discussed, and I haven't decided what I'm gonna do. I'm not thrilled with Hillary at all.
Mm.
I'm not thrilled with Bernie either. Um, I hear the argument that if neither one of them is elected or electable, then we're looking at the Donald.
Oh,
And that ain't cute at all.
Mm-mm.
But I never think the choices are good, but I do think that this year the choices are especially slim pickings. So, but the
500 years,
but
Michelle.
the idea of writing in reparations now, I believe deeply that Black people deserve reparations and that we should be doing everything that we can to fight about it, recognizing that Congressman John Conyers has been introducing a bill for more than 40 years,
Yes.
just to study the idea of reparations. And he has not been able to succeed in getting that much accomplished. But I definitely think it's an issue that deserves the time and attention and advocacy of a large number of people. But I know that we're not there. And so, what does it mean to write in something like that as your vote? What does it mean to vote for a candidate, any candidate, that is not going to be responsive to your needs? I'm concerned about the young people that have been sort of turned off because Barack was not able to deliver the world to them. I don't know why he promised the world in the first place. He was trying to get elected, so he told people what they wanted to hear. He probably didn't realize either they were going to actually believe him, but they did, and so now they're really, really disappointed. Um, and so that concerns me. It concerns me that Black people and women, but Black people in particular, have put so much of ourselves into gaining and keeping the right to vote, and that we're now pretty much, so many of us just don't vote, period, because of the disillusionment. But I don't know. I think we really ought to be thinking about what to do with that. My bachelor's is in political science, so I have always felt that um, there are a lot of other things you can do besides vote, but they require a lot more energy, a lot more organization, a lot more commitment than we are accustomed to devoting to the political process. But if you think of models like the Contract on America, and I think I've mentioned this before, but remember the Contract on America from the late 90s, Newt Gingrich and Bill Clinton, where, they really went down the list. They really went down the list and said, what is it that people need to make their lives good? And said, okay, snatch that!
Okay.
Okay. What is it that people need to be healthy and strong? Okay, snatch that! But if you look at the contract, it really is this comprehensive plan of virtually every area of American life. And so for me, it's a model on the one hand of what we don't do. What we don't do is put together this plan and say, these are the things that we want. And then we fight. We fight like Alec, state by state, legislature by legislature, for everything on this list of demands. So that's one kind of model. The other kind of model is what the Tea Party has done. Door to door, home to home. Give me a cup of tea, and let's talk about what we're going to do. But that is a level of commitment that is a couple of cuts above going to the voting booth every 4 years and pulling the lever. And so I don't know how we get to a place where we have the conversation about how, like these 40,000 women in the black women in 1900s who were doing exactly that kind of thing, door to door. So yeah, I understand the disillusionment, but I also understand quite a bit about what we're not doing, not only as black people, but as Americans. Because most Americans don't vote either, you know. And so to me, it kind of doesn't add up to say, oh, the system is corrupt, oh, nothing can be done about it, when we haven't really even tried ABC through XYZ. So that's my speech on that.
Okay. Well, Michelle, do you think it could be because we don't have in our communities, well, first of all, we don't think of ourselves as one community. We're very separated.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the time frame of this book, the chapter that we're in, there were lynchings, and that danger that Kim was talking about was on the doorstep. These women had shotguns, and they had to have them. And I think the last meeting we had where Joel took part, he was telling a story about his mother walking to work with a 38 in her purse just to work at the factory,
Mm-hmm.
to keep. So maybe if we don't consider, because that danger is not on your doorstep, it could be, and be more empathetic to the other people who are facing these dangers. Maybe we could move together like that, but first we have to get empathetic. Maybe that's our
Yeah,
problem.
yeah. I mean, we don't have the same sense of immediacy that they had back then. Um, but that's only because the 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 optics of the game have changed, but the substance has not changed. And we're affected so deeply by the political process. When we talk about mass incarceration, for example, that's us.
Yes.
Or we talk about entitlement programs. So many of us are dependent on that on
Mhm.
those kinds of programs. There's so many ways. There's so many of us that are in the military. There's so many
Yeah.
ways that we are directly impacted by what government does at all levels. And so it's hard for me to understand really why we don't feel the immediacy, why we don't make the direct connections. Or as we've been talking about here tonight, the food that we eat. That's
Yeah.
everybody. Why
Yeah.
wouldn't we care? Why wouldn't we care?
You're right.
The
Hmm.
air we breathe. Why wouldn't we care about that? So I know it's a very complicated answer as to how people have become so disengaged, so disillusioned. But it's like we're having a tantrum, and I guess that's kind of how I feel about the reparations now. It's like having a tantrum. Well, I've had tantrums. I practically killed myself because I was having a tantrum. It didn't solve a problem, but I guess I felt better because I had a tantrum. So what I'm trying to ask is, so okay, I get why we've gotten so disillusioned, but how do we move out of the tantrum phase into an actual proactive position?